Today I'm here with Dr. Hesha Duggirala, who is an epidemiologist at the Food and Drug Administration. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, our first question is, why did you go into public health, and why did you want to become an epidemiologist, or why did you choose to become an epidemiologist?
Great. Well, it's great talking to you today, Pallavi. Thanks for having me. The journey started when I was in college. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was a biology major thinking maybe I'd go to medical school. And then my senior year of college, I took an epidemiology class, and something just clicked. It just seemed such a natural way of thinking. And as time has gone on, I realized that epidemiology is just a certain mindset. It's a certain way of thinking. It's solving puzzles. I've always been really into detective novels and work like that, and so something really called to me, and it just came very easy to me, even though it was a very challenging class, and I just really loved it. So that's when I decided that that's what I wanted to do.
Wow.
Was to study epidemiology.
How cool. Well, can you describe your job a little bit, like
Sure.
what your daily responsibilities are like?
So there's a lot of kind of different ways to be an epidemiologist. I work in a regulatory agency, so I've been there since 2001, hired on to be on the post-market side of FDA. So that means that once a product is approved or cleared by FDA, we keep an eye on it once it's on the market to make sure that it's still safe and effective. Most of the emphasis is on safety at that point. So if we find that we are getting a lot of adverse events reported to us, usually from the manufacturer, about 90% of the adverse events FDA gets is from the manufacturer, we almost have to do kind of mini outbreak investigations to see what is the problem, what's the cause of so many people having a bad reaction to a particular regulated product. So it's a lot of kind of mini investigations like that. I've gotten to the point where I do a lot of consulting with a lot of different divisions across my section of FDA to give them an idea of kind of what is their end goal, what are they trying to accomplish, and kind of give them some of the statistical and epidemiologic tools that they might want to try to be able to answer a specific question.
Wow. And so what do you enjoy about your work? What are your daily joys, and what drives you to come to work every day?
So definitely it's this idea of having the altruism of working for a public health agency. We're not in it for fame and fortune. We're in it because we genuinely care about the public's health and to keep people safe.
Yeah.
So that is a tremendous driver when you exist for something that's so much bigger than yourself. You know, where you're literally, like, some of the things we could do can potentially impact millions of people and their health and safety. So that is the number one driver of my work.
Yeah.
So.
That's so amazing. Now, on the other hand of that, what are some things that frustrate you about your work?
I would say in recent history, the biggest frustration has been kind of this distrust and misinformation that we've been seeing in public health. That's been really distressing because, you know, the people that I work with are so committed. They're genuinely in this because they care about the mission of public health. They care about the mission of the Food and Drug Administration. We're not trying to dupe anybody. We're not trying to con anybody. We are just trying to keep people safe. And so when there is misinformation out there, whether it be misuse of a regulated product or people's distrust in an FDA-approved product, it's really difficult when we sincerely have people's best interests at heart. And countering that and trying to help people understand what is the correct information is becoming increasingly challenging.
Yeah. And so I know you touched on how rewarding it is. Can you share a project or study that you worked on that had like a significant impact that you were able to see?
So there's been several, and I think COVID was really the one where so many parts of being an epidemiologist I really got to exercise. So we had a lot of people within our organization that were deployed to different parts of the agency, whether to help with vaccine clearance or other parts or whether it be test kits.
Yeah.
And so the rest of us had to really pick up the slack when we were short-manned like that. We also, I also started a little lecture series for friends and family where I was able to answer questions about the vaccine and about the epidemic, and I was really able to lean in my expertise to educate people about what was going on. I would watch the entire panel meeting for the vaccine advisory panel to see if they were going to be approving the vaccine or not, and then I would kind of break down the data, what is the safety, what is the efficacy of the vaccine, to give people more confidence that FDA has really looked at this data, that it's not a fluke, that that these products are being approved and that they are safe and that they work. And so that was one part of it. I was also able to help out with the vaccine clinic that got stood up, completely in my on my own time. And then another part of it was that I was deployed as a civilian deployment to the Department of Health and Human Services during the pandemic, where I used my epi skills to figure out how much monoclonal antibody each state would get every week, depending on the epidemiology of COVID within that state for that week. And literally we would make the call, and then the military would go on planes and deliver the monoclonal to that particular state. So it was a really immediate impact, which we don't always see in public health. Sometimes you can't always see prevention. You can't always see the changes. They happen over a very slow period of time. But here we were looking at data day to day, hour by hour, and be able to make decisions. And so even though COVID was such a challenging time, it was an exciting time to be an epidemiologist, because I felt if someday my grandkids asked me what did I do during the pandemic, I could say that I did everything I could to help. And that was incredibly satisfying.
Yeah. Wow. And so you kind of touched on a little bit with COVID, but how do you think that epidemiology and the public health sphere interact with medicine? And would you consider yourself as an epidemiologist a part of the medical field?
I don't think I would. I think that medicine and public health are two disparate fields, and I certainly wouldn't want to disparage my medical colleagues in any way, because the work they do is distinct from the work we do, and they train for it on such an intense level for so long. They're treating people, right? And we are preventing people from getting sick in the first place. So it's two very different things. It is obviously related, and we have to work with our medical colleagues really closely. There are a lot of epidemiologists who are trained in medicine first, or they're like me, where they've gotten their PhD in epidemiology, so it's sort of, in my case, it's a lot more statistics heavy, my training. So I would say that it is very complementary, but a pretty distinct training and skill set.
Okay, yeah. And I understand that you founded the FDA's Data Mining Council. Can you explain to us, what is data mining, and how is that utilized in the public health sphere?
Sure. So, great question. That we started this back in 2007, where we found that there were people around the FDA who were interested in using statistical algorithms to find signal in large data sets. And so, which is essentially what any kind of mining of data is, that you have a large amount of data and you're trying to find a story or trying to find some sort of idea of what is that data telling you, using statistical algorithms and computer algorithms. So we founded this organization back in 2007. We eventually renamed ourselves the Data Science Council, because we realized that mining was too limited in what we were interested in. And it's been really interesting to see this evolution, because it basically has all evolved into artificial intelligence.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, what used to be called computer science was then called data mining, is now called artificial intelligence. It's all pretty much the same idea, where you are using a computer to help you either predict, understand, analyze, do grunt work that a human would normally be doing. For example, FDA gets about 2 million adverse event reports per year.
Wow.
It's a tremendous amount of information
Yeah.
that we don't have enough resources to literally have somebody reading each of these reports by hand. So we need to have something like a statistical tool that helps us understand, okay, are we seeing something in excess of what we would expect to see? And once that kind of signal is identified, then we can have a person go in and read those reports specifically and see if there's something, if there's a there. So, and that's a lot of what artificial intelligence is now. And so that is one of the most significant ways in which my job has changed. And so earlier this year, I was named the Artificial Intelligence Policy Coordinator for my center. So anything having to do with artificial intelligence that comes into my FDA center kind of goes through me. I get the right experts involved or weigh in on how we should be at FDA should be involved. And so there's a lot of different parts to that. So one is if a manufacturer is having a drug that is being developed, are they using artificial intelligence either in their manufacturing process or their data collection process? Are we using it on the back end within FDA to help us organize our reviews or organize our thoughts or analyze our data?
Yeah.
So that's actually, I think, a way that the entire field of epidemiology is evolving, where we're getting away from kind of traditional epidemiologic methods. And I've been challenging my fellow epidemiologists to think about how do we exist? How do we do our work better in an age of artificial intelligence, in an age of data science, where we have so many more tools available to us than would have been available 50, 60 years ago?
Yeah.
And how do we really lean into that and make the field better because of it? And so that's been just really interesting conversations that are being had in terms of how the field is evolving.
For sure. And I know you touched on this in a previous question just slightly, but during COVID-19, how do you think the perspectives of the field of epidemiology changed, and how does it change the way you've worked or the perspectives you've seen? Things like that.
So one of the funniest things is that I never have to explain to somebody what I do anymore.
Aww.
All right. So before the pandemic, I would get like, so are you a skin doctor? What does an epidemiologist do? But now everybody knows what an epidemiologist is. So that was, if anything, there was a silver lining. It was that.
Yeah.
I think that it has definitely instilled in me this concept of One Health. And so One Health is this idea that we don't just exist within as humans within this one sphere of health and medicine, that we are all connected by the environment, by other species, you know, whether it be where did COVID-19 come from? If we look at the avian influenza H5N1 cases that are popping up now, that is of great concern. And so we really have to think about the entire environment.
Yeah.
And so it's really given me a newfound respect for my colleagues who work on this idea of One Health, and they have been preaching it for a really long time, and I think the pandemic really helped me solidify what that looks like in public health and in epidemiology.
Yeah. And so, are there any expectations about your career that you went in thinking that turned out to be different from reality?
I don't think I had many expectations. I was pretty young when I started at FDA. I was in my late 20s. I just was excited to have a job, you know, right out of grad school. And so I think that I wasn't sure if I would be able to work full-time once I had kids. And I have found that FDA is a wonderful place for work-life balance, where they really, really want us to have a feeling of that we have time for ourselves, we have time for our family. I work at home full-time, which is really nice because then I can be there for the kids for their practices and to take care of myself and have enough time to exercise and things like that. So I think that it's just desk-based work. It's stats, it's data, and so it's easy to do it remotely. And so I think that has been something that I did not anticipate, that I would be able to maintain a full-time career and raise two kids at the same time. So that's been extremely nice that I was able to do that.
Yeah. And so, what advice would you give to someone who eventually wants to be where you are today? Or what is the best piece of advice that you have received in regards to your career?
So I think it's really what you're doing probably here in terms of talking to different people, right? And coming across people, having different experiences. Like if I hadn't taken that class, you know, in college in epidemiology, it wouldn't have opened my eyes to what was possible.
Yeah.
And so what I recommend to young people is, you know, talk to people, find that person who has that job that you want, and really understand what their path was. How did they get there? Because if you can't see it, you can't get there.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have a vision for where you want to get to someday, it really helps pave your path of getting there. So having different experiences, talking to people, just putting yourself out there, I have found, and I don't know if it was necessarily a piece of advice or if it was just from experience, but people love to talk to students, you know, and so it literally, like, you know, calling somebody cold, even though they may seem on paper or on their website is very impressive. People are really generous with their time, especially in public health and medicine. Where they are just in a field where they're trying to help people. And that includes people who are younger and in training and learning. And so I would say don't be afraid to reach out. If somebody has an interesting job that you want to find more about, call them up. Schedule an informational interview.
Yeah.
Find out more about what they're doing. People are really generous with their time if you just ask them. And oftentimes they're very flattered that you want to learn about what they're doing.
Wow. And so we've learned so much from this short discussion, from the evolution of epidemiology into AI to mapping our future. I want to thank you so much for talking with me today.
Always a pleasure.
I've learned so much already.
Thank you.